Mr. President, Vladimir Putin may be a liar and a demagogue, but it is hypocritical for the United States to insist that we, as a nation, do not accept the principle of spheres of influence. For the last 200 years, our country has operated under the Monroe Doctrine, embracing the principle that as the dominant power in the Western Hemisphere, the United States has the right, according to the United States, to intervene against any country that might threaten our alleged interests. That's United States policy. And under this doctrine, the United States has undermined and overthrown at least a dozen countries throughout Latin America, Central America, and the Caribbean. As many might recall, in 1962, we came to the brink of nuclear war with the Soviet Union. Now, why was that? Why did we almost come to the brink of nuclear war with the Soviet Union? Well, we did that in response to the placement of Soviet missiles in Cuba 90 miles from our shore. And the Kennedy administration saw that as an unacceptable threat to national security. We said it is unacceptable for a hostile country to have a significant military presence 90 miles away from our shore. And let us be clear, the Monroe Doctrine is not ancient history. As recently as 2018, Donald Trump's Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, called the Monroe Doctrine, quote, as relevant today as it was the day it was written, end quote. In 2019, former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton declared, quote, the Monroe Doctrine is alive and well, end quote. To put it simply, even if Russia was not ruled by a corrupt, oligarchic, authoritarian leader like Vladimir Putin, Russia, like the United States, would still have an interest in the security policies of its neighbors. And I want people to think about this. Does anyone really believe that the United States would not have something to say if, for example, Mexico or Cuba or any country in Central or Latin America were to form a military alliance with the U.S. adversary? Do you think that members of Congress would stand up and say, well, you know, Mexico is an independent country. They have the right to do anything they want? I doubt that very much. Mr. President, countries should be free to make their own foreign policy choices. But making those choices wisely requires a serious consideration of the costs and benefits. The fact is that the U.S. and Ukraine entering into a deeper security relationship is likely to have some very serious costs for both countries.
And if there is a country that has committed unspeakable atrocities in the world, it is the United States of America. They don't care. They don't care for human beings. 57 years ago, when Japan was retreating on all fronts, they decided to drop the atom bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Killed a lot of innocent people who are still suffering from the effects of those bombs. Those bombs were not aimed against the Japanese. They were aimed against the Soviet Union to say, look, this is the power that we have. If you dare oppose what we do, this is what is going to happen to you. Because they are so arrogant, they decided to kill innocent people in Japan who are still suffering from that. Who are they now to pretend that they are the policemen of the world?
And Syria is just one example. American War Crimes has its own Wikipedia page. Torture, extrajudicial killings, illegal detentions, they've done it all. Let me start with Iraq. Who can forget the Abu Ghraib prison? This is where America perfected their war crimes. Prisoners were tortured, raped, sodomized and killed. All of this is documented. In fact, it was authorized by the US government. Their Justice Department released a memo before the Iraq war. It's called the Torture Memos. What did this document say? One, that US officials cannot be charged with war crimes. And two, that enhanced interrogation techniques can be used on prisoners. What are these enhanced techniques? Basically a clever way of saying torture. And two pictures sum up what America did in Abu Ghraib. Here's one of them. The prisoner is made to stand on a box. His head is covered and his fingers are connected to an electric wire. Do you know what his interrogators told him? If you fall off the box, you will be electrocuted. That's what he was told. Here's picture number 2. It's even worse. Naked prisoners have been piled on top of each other. Their heads are covered and posing behind them are US soldiers, all smiles. This was standard practice apparently. The CIA regularly clicked naked pictures of their prisoners. The idea was to strip them of all dignity. Many prisoners died during such so-called interrogations. Many are still languishing in so-called US black sites. The people who did this are not soldiers, they're criminals. But the United States continues to protect them. Let me give you an example. In 2005, a US battalion in Iraq was hit by a roadside bomb in a place called Haditha. One soldier was killed, one soldier. The same day, this battalion marched into a neighborhood. They shot and killed 24 women and children. Do you know what the battalion's leader said? Shoot first, ask questions later. And do you know what his punishment was? 90 days in jail plus a pay cut. A pay cut. That's the punishment for taking 24 innocent lives. Here's another example. This is from 2007. A private security company was escorting a US diplomatic convoy in Baghdad. They say they were ambushed. In response, they killed 17 innocent Iraqi citizens. 4 of the employees were tried and convicted. But in December last year, Donald Trump, then president, pardoned them. So they're free men now. The fact is, America will do anything to protect its war criminals. They will find legal loopholes. They will use their diplomatic power. They will even build a military base on an isolated island to hide their crimes. I'm talking about the infamous Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp, or Gitmo for short. Since 2002, 780 people have been detained here. No charges, no trial, no lawyers. 731 prisoners have been transferred out. 39 still remain and 9 died in custody. Gitmo is a monument to America's ruthless crimes. Prisoners say they were tortured with broken glass, strangled with barbed wires, forcefully injected with drugs and repeatedly raped. Remember who's doing this. The supposed human rights champion, the self-proclaimed guardian of freedom. They did the same in Afghanistan. We know the Bagram Air Base is as the crown jewel of the US operation, but that was not always the case. Bagram also houses a detention camp. Prisoners were chained to the ceiling. They were beaten, sexually assaulted and killed. Then you have a list of illegal operations. The Kandahar Massacre, 16 civilians dead, including 9 children. The Maiwan district murders, 3 civilians dead. The Kabul airstrike, 9 civilians dead. This last one happened this year. An entire family was wiped out in one strike. What's the punishment for such mistakes? Apparently nothing. The Pentagon says no US soldier will be punished. No jail, no demotion, not even pay cuts. And frankly, we should not be surprised. America's drone strikes are among the biggest war crimes in human history. The president orders, the Pentagon pushes a button, and innocent civilians are massacred halfway around the world. Let me show you the numbers. Since 9/11, the US has conducted 100,000 drone strikes. Do you know how many people have they killed? At least 22,000 civilians. The worst estimate is 48,000. Could any other country get away with these crimes? No, they would be sanctioned, at the very least dragged to court. And that's the other issue. The US is yet to join the International Criminal Court, which means the ICC, International Criminal Court, cannot prosecute US soldiers. Then who can? American courts. And we all know how that ends. Even if US courts convict a soldier, their president ends up pardoning him. He becomes a decorated war hero instead of a war criminal. Hollywood makes movies on them. Late night shows interview them. This is the reality of the United States. The American war machine is actually a war crime machine. It's about time someone called them out. US soldiers arrive in foreign lands as messengers of peace and freedom, but they leave as merchants of death and destruction. So if Joe Biden wants to talk democracy and human rights, maybe start with your own military. Join the International Criminal Court. Subject your soldiers to independent probes. Until then, do not take the moral high ground, because the mass graves in Afghanistan, Syria, Libya and Iraq disagree. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.